Good evening, everyone, and welcome to PEO's 2024 Council Election All Candidates Meetings. My name is Marisa Sterling, a past president of PEO, and I will be the moderator for tonight's discussion. If you want, you can turn on closed captions for tonight's discussion by locating the tab along the bottom menu of your Zoom screen and clicking on Captions. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates for the two-year term of Western Regional Councillor. There is one vacant position to be elected by qualified PEO members who live within the Western region of Ontario. The three candidates for this position are Chris Popiolek, Peter Inman, and Vicky Hilborn. This meeting with the candidates via webcast is intended to help you, the voters, learn more about the candidates and the PEO issues to inform your vote. The profession needs every PN to vote to help to form a council that would guide PEO in the coming years. Voters were able to post questions online in advance of this discussion, and tonight we'll try to get to as many questions as possible over the next hour. In accordance with the approved protocol for all candidates' meetings, as moderator, I may shorten the questions and not read out preambles to questions. I may select any question. I may move offensive and duplicate questions, and I may add questions not on the platform. Each candidate will be provided 2 minutes for opening remarks. I will then direct a question to a candidate. That candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. After the candidate has responded, the remaining candidates will each have 1 minute to address the first candidate's response to that question. Following the question period, the candidates will have 90 seconds each for their closing remarks. The order of speakers was determined by a draw earlier this evening. The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of PEO and are the responsibility of the candidates. There will be no fact-checking of candidates' statements tonight. So now the order that will be the speaking will be Chris Popiolek, Peter Inman, and Vicky Hilborn. So without further delay, let's get started with opening remarks. The first candidate for Western Regional Councillor is Chris Popiolek. Chris, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marisa. Good evening, everybody. I've been involved with PEO for about 15 years. I started as a volunteer with the chapter in London, and then I moved on to become a secretary, acting treasurer for a while, vice chair, and moved on to the chair. I'm an very active part of golf certificate, golf tournament organizing committee, certificate presentation committee, and I lead the license assistant program from the London chapter. Last year in 2023, I was a member of the chapter leaders conference organizing committee. For community service other than PEO, I was a member for the long time of Thames Valley Toastmasters in various roles, including president of the chapter and some roles outside of the club. I've been a board member of the condo that I live in, so I have some board experience. And you can call me a tree hugger. I'm a volunteer for the Reforest London, an organization that wants to plant 1 million trees in London, and we are halfway there. As far as my priorities for being a councillor, I would like to make council more transparent, more bidirectional communication between the members and the council, demonstrating the value of the PN to graduating people, to the government, to the public. I would like to have proper support for the chapters. I'm sure everybody in the chapters would like to have that. And I want fairness and inclusivity in key decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So now the second candidate for Western Regional Councillor is Peter Inman. Peter, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marissa. I'm currently chair of Niagara chapter and have been involved with the chapter executive for over 20 years. So why am I running for council? I was shocked to learn that in Ontario, only 20% of the 21% of Canadian engineering school graduates become licensed. What? One would expect that the next most engineering grads would become licensed. Otherwise, why attend engineering school? So the new licensing process continues to be complicated and cumbersome. The cancellation of the EIT program does not make sense, and there is currently no replacement for it. The licensing strategy must change. Currently, 80% of engineering grads are unlicensed without ongoing commitment to ethical behavior or public safety, the primary pillars of professional engineering. The licensing practice must be streamlined, straightforward, and include both traditional and high technology disciplines, such as nuclear engineering, software engineering, AI, and so on, that our modern society depends on. The process should enable a limited license shortly after graduation with full license after appropriate experience. We need to have a new definition of engineering that's pragmatic. The engineer as problem solver. The practice of engineering should not stop should one go into management, government, or business, as long as the commitment to ethical behavior and public service remain intact. In fact, we need engineers in these areas as this problem-solving ability travels into effective decision-making and implementation skills that benefit society. I have broad experience in the energy sector, both regulated and unregulated businesses, and I believe I can use that experience and governance in those sectors to help the engineering profession move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. The third candidate now for the Western Regional Councillor is Vicki Hilborn. Vicki, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Vicki Hilborn. I'm currently the Western Regional Councillor on Council, and I'm asking you to re-elect me as Western Regional Councillor for 2 more years. I believe I have brought a spirit of hard work, respect, and professionalism to Council. Throughout the last 2 years, I have demonstrated that I am a strong advocate for self-regulation of the engineering profession through my time volunteering for PEO, as well as additional roles over the last 10 years as chapter chair and on several PEO committees and in my full-time employment. I've also have a demonstrated track record of accountability and respect through my tenure that I've shown throughout the last 2 years. I'm committed to bolstering the chapter system, as demonstrated again through my chapter leadership for the Brantford chapter for over 5 years. I am dedicated to advocating for international trained engineers, and I again have shown that through my time on council and providing coaching to international engineers throughout my time as a professional engineer. And then finally, in my role as a chair of the Regulatory Policy and Legislation Committee, which is a council committee, I am working hard to restore a pre-license program similar to the EIT program. This important program supported me in getting my professional engineering license, and I want to ensure other people have that opportunity. Furthermore, beyond the work I've done with PEO, I have been on several other boards, including a co-op supporting the Zoo Share biogas program at the Toronto Zoo and the Canadian Biogas Association. And I believe that experience, as well as my experience on council, makes me the best candidate to be the future Western Regional Councillor for you, the Western Region members. Thanks again for the confidence you showed me in the last 2 years, and I'm eager to serve for 2 more.
Thank you very much, Vicki. So that concludes now the opening remarks segment. So we're now going to go to the questions. I'm going to start off with the question that I'm sure is on many people's minds. So this first question is we're going to start with Chris. So the question is, PEO has 36 chapters that function and host activities that are legally permitted for a regulator and may not be essential to effective board governance. What is your view on the chapters? How should council deal with the chapters in the coming year? For example, should they remain with PEO? Should PEO ask OSBI to take over their management, or should PEO do something else with them? So Chris, over to you. What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Marisa. Chapters, I believe, are the eyes and ears of the PO. The volunteers in the chapters, the troops on the ground, if you will. Sure, there are lots of activities that are done by the chapters, which are probably not the core mandate of the PO. Some of those might be moved on to the OSPI. However, I believe that the chapters should be staying within PEO as it is currently happening. I don't see a reason why chapters should be discontinued or moved to OSPI.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Peter, you now have a minute to respond to what you heard and to add your thoughts. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this discussion's been going on for some time between the role of the chapter should be part of PEO or part of OSPI or something else. I believe that chapters play a critical role as the middleman, if you want, between PEO as the regulator and OSPI as representing the interest of the members. The chapters, as the middleman, are there to enhance and are advocating for the betterment of the profession overall. And so we listen to both the regulator as well as to our members and do take activities that will help the membership through, whether it's through mentorship of new members, whether it's through advocating for better and streamlined licensing processes, and those sort of things. So we're a key part of it. We should remain as part of PEO because we're the sort of the right-hand person for the PEO as regulator to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And now, Vicki, what would be your response to what you heard and any further thoughts?
Absolutely. So I really appreciate Chris and Peter's perspective coming from the chapters. As someone that's also come from the chapter-based system, I also believe that chapters are really critical to meet PEL's role of promoting the engineering profession, particularly focusing on the license component of that engineering profession. I do think that we need to be thoughtful on what we're doing as chapters to ensure that we're really fulfilling the licensing portion and the discipline and the enforcement portion of the engineering, and making sure that we're balancing that with the role of the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, or OSPI, in the role of advocating for professional engineers. It is difficult sometimes to find that line, but I think we can do it, especially with our newfound relationship with OSPI that is more transparent and trusting. And overall, I'm really proud of the work that Council has done to take a risk-based approach to understanding the work of chapters. And I think that should continue to ensure that we're doing what is best for both PEO, the membership, and for the public.
Thank you very much, Vicki. We're going to move now to the second question. And Peter, you will be the first one to take this question. So we've now just talked about the chapters. There are quite a few in your regions. So the question is about time management. So how will you manage your time so that you can fulfill your duties on council while also managing your other commitments, including any business, paid employment, and or any other volunteer roles? So Peter, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm in the unique position that I'm newly retired and somewhat self-employed. And so basically I work for whatever a cause I think that will make the most benefit. So in this case here, I do believe that I can add value to the profession. I'm willing to take whatever time is needed to listen to chapter members, to listen to other councillors and whatnot. And I've already put a bit of research into where the PEO is currently today. So I'm in that unique position that I can work for council as much as needed to help the process move forward. So that's my unique situation, and I still have the energy and want to make a change for the future. So that's where I come from.
Thank you very much, Peter. Vicki, what about your response?
Thank you. So when I came onto council 2 years ago, I actually just had my first baby, and that took a lot of balance. And now I've learned even more balance through working and having a child as well as being on council. And I found the way to do that is by doing early prep for meetings to make sure that I am ready for council meetings as well as committee meetings, sending forward questions, and also making sure I have lots of time to engage with chapters and my fellow council members. And that engagement can take on different ways. It can be in person at meetings with chapters, as well as a lot of email correspondence or phone calls with chapter members. And I have found those phone calls and email correspondence really helpful and critical to understanding the needs of chapters and for regional members. And I really appreciate that time. And I have found that the balance is not that tricky as long as you prioritize it over other activities. And I have found with full-time working, it's been really fun to be able to balance and have a good volunteer base to work off of.
Thanks very much, Vicki. So it's very helpful to understand your time commitments to this position. So my next question now is a bit about your leadership style, and we're going to start with Vicki. So how would colleagues describe your leadership style, and can you provide any examples?
Absolutely. So I am actually the team lead for the Innovation, Engineering, and Program Delivery Unit for the Ministry of Agriculture. And in that role, I coach and lead 18 engineers who are located across Ontario. And through that role, I have been seen to be a calm, respectful, and spirited person that really tries to get the best out of people, but doing it in a way that makes sure that we can all balance our lives. And so what I do to do that is by setting out clear expectations of what I want from people, as well as making sure that I allow people to come in as a safe environment and to be their full selves. I think that's a really critical piece that the engineering sector needs to understand and be more reflective of, is ensuring that we're being inclusive and diverse with the thinking of the engineers. And I've brought that view in from both my government role and my role in council. And I really hope that that leadership role that people can be positive and being their full selves, both the engineering profession and to volunteering. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vicki. Next is Chris, but Chris, I think I actually missed you for the last question. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
I'm so sorry about that. So we're going to give you twice the time. I'm so sorry. I just realized. So let's go back to the other question. So first, how will you manage your time so that you can fulfill your duties on council while also managing your other commitments, including any business, paid employment, or other volunteer roles? So let's have a minute on that, and then we'll move to the next question.
I must say I agree with Vicki on that one. Preparation is the key. If you prepare ahead of time, you don't wait for the last moment, then you are halfway there. Time management is something that is, from my point of view, you either have it or you don't have it, right? I'm like, if you don't have the student syndrome where you wait for the last moment, then you always be ready for whatever life throws at you. So that's how I see it. And I don't see time management being a problem. I'm not going to have the same situation as Vicky because I'm not going to have any kids. I don't have any kids and I'm not going to have kids. So my hats is off to you, Vicky, how you've done it. I have no idea. That's a separate discussion, maybe over a beer. But yeah, it's prioritizing. Sometimes things have to be pushed a little bit, done a little bit later, but preparation is the key. Early preparation.
Thank you, Chris. So now we're going to give you one more minute and carry over this next question, which is how would colleagues describe your leadership style, and can you provide some examples?
I have the fortune or misfortune, I guess maybe some people would say, of being a manager, middle management at my work. So I understand that the problems dealing with people, being the people manager, because it's not just managing the project, right? That's one thing. That's the easy part. Managing the project is the easy part. Managing the people, that's the difficult part. And again, I have to agree with you, Vicky. I think we're gonna agree more often than not. Clear expectations of what, clear communication, clear expectation.
We can hear you, Chris.
Yeah, I'm done with this one.
Yeah.
We can move on.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Chris. So let's move. Sorry, Peter. This is yours to answer. Okay. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. So just to follow along, I know we bumped around a little bit here. So how would colleagues describe your leadership style, and can you provide any examples? Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so my style is facilitative leadership. Um, I've over my career I've been assigned different projects, and I describe it as innovative solutions to complex projects and dealing with multidiscipline and um, uh, diverse, uh, uh, diverse groups of people. And I achieve it through active listening, looking at ways, the outcomes, more of a strategic approach to what we're trying to accomplish, listening to people, adjusting what we're going to do, and at the end of the day, coming up with a consensus to what needs to be done, so that everyone has a part of the outcomes and processes and are committed to the end result. So that's my approach.
Thank you very much, Peter. So we're going to move to the next question. And this one, we're going to start off with Chris for the response. So what do you see as the most important challenge facing PEO today? And if successful in your election bid, how would you address this challenge on council in the next year? So Chris, please go ahead.
The challenge facing the PEO. I think it's also a weakness of PEO. It's the disengagement of members. Only about 12% of members vote, which is even lower than number of people graduating that joined the PEO. So that's the biggest threat, the biggest weakness, the biggest threat I see facing PEO. We need to sell PEO to members, and we need to get people engaged and excited about being a member of PEO. It's not, yeah, sure, we have a stamp, we can put the PH behind your names, but there's more to being professional engineer. I would like to, and right now I don't have any idea what we can do, but I'm sure there is something that can be done to engage people a little bit more in the PO.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Peter, how would you like to respond to that?
I think the most important challenge facing PEO today is reputation and relevancy. PEO seem to have a reputation of being difficult to deal with. They're old school, monopolistic, and dealing with the traditional engineering challenges. As I started at the beginning, only 20% of the engineering graduates are being licensed, and 80% are not being licensed. To me, that's a huge relevancy issue. The unlicensed engineers that out there are actually a liability to profession. PEO has no control over them. They look like and may be wearing an iron ring, but they're not professional engineers. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges to the PEO is to modernize, to open things up, and to be seen as a truly a leader, and want people want to be licensed and be part of that solution.
Thank you very much, Peter. Vicki, what would be your response?
So I reflect on what both Chris and Peter said, and I do think that those are some core concerns of PEO, but I both think they reflect something of what's happening within the PEO organization. Like many employers, PEO is struggling to keep the best staff to deliver PEO's work. And I think that's the area that the council should be working on to ensure that we are recruiting the right people and retaining them within PEO to ensure that we have excellent customer service, that we have good ability to regulate and review applications, and the ability to do good discipline and good enforcement, which is the key roles of PEO. And I think we can do that through a number of ways, ensuring that our wages are competitive and also ensuring that the work environment is safe and that it is a productive area that promotes creativity and innovation. And I think this can all reflect in an excellent organization that can be even better for the next 100 years.
Thank you very much, Vicki. We're going to move to the next question now, and this will be Peter that will take the first response. So PEO's current strategic plan has a goal to improve the licensing processes without compromising public safety. And as of July the 1st of 2023, the Ontario government required PEO to comply with fair access practices. So a question submitted tonight was from someone who claimed that the licensing review process has actually slowed down to beyond 12 months versus being completed within 6 months. So what will you do on council in the next year to address this? Peter, please go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so the getting back to the licensing process, the FARPACTA changes, they've just changed it so that we're now having people apply after 4 years rather than at the end of graduation. And I'm concerned that that will result in even fewer in people signing up for licensing. I've seen where there are concerns that the licensing, there's a backlog in academic academic reviews to be done. But nonetheless, I am hopeful. There are some changes that I see happening with PEO that will improve the situation over time. And that's one reason why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Vicki, how would you respond?
Absolutely. So I would agree that the current licensing process is slow and that we need to work to improve it. And one of the ways that we could work to improve it is being very open with the time that it takes to review a standard and the longest time that it takes to review an application. With the new system under FARPACTA, we do need to give on average 90% of applications a response within 6 months. And I do think that we should be actively reporting that on our website in a very prominent way. And this allows us to be transparent and to ensure that we're demonstrating that we are doing the best for the public interest. I do agree as well that the applications for pre-FARPACTA people needs to be prioritized, and there needs to be clear and firm communication with applicants so they understand where their place is in the process and that they can see where they can expedite things or that type of thing. For example, if you have a job application, let PEO know. We can expedite things potentially, but people might not be realize there are opportunities like that. Thank you.
Great. And Chris, what about yourself? What would be your response?
So there is a backlog of license people waiting to be licensed. That has to be cleared, right? I'm like, there's possibly something that can be done. Maybe hire some temporary people or get some volunteers to help with that. But I disagree with Peter that having to wait 4 years to be licensed will minimize the number of people that will be licensed. I don't think that's the case. And reducing the requirement for having the 1 year of Canadian experience opens the profession to all the people that are trained internationally, have experience internationally, because engineering is the same anywhere you go, right? I'm like, sure, might be some Canadian specific codes, but engineering profession is the same all over the world.
Thanks, Chris, so much. Our next question, we're going to start with Vicki. So the question is that nationally, among Canadian engineering regulators, is a goal by 2030 to have 30% of new licensees be women. And PEO signed on to this goal a few years ago. And so how would you direct PEO's role in achieving this goal for the remaining 6 years? Vicki, please go ahead.
Absolutely. So as a female engineer, I find this goal really inspiring, and I really think we need to continue to work on it hard. And I recognize that there's going to be a lot of work that's needed to be done in the last couple of years to meet this goal. Again, I think a key part of this is openness and transparency with the numbers. So there is embedded in the PEO website, you can find the percentage of engineers that are women, but it isn't open. And I think we can be open and transparent about this goal and what we're doing to achieve it. As a member of council, I take a view of this goal regularly when we make decisions. If we make decisions to work on one project, that means that there's less time to focus on this particular goal. And so when I direct or help to make a decision on council, I need to make sure that we are prioritizing this goal. And I will continue to prioritize this goal in the next 2 years on council. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vicki. Chris, what would be your response?
I like the idea that Engineers Canada and subsequently POs started the idea of the 30 by 30. I was very excited when I first heard about it. To make sure that we get there, we should talk to students before they graduate to make sure that not only we're getting more than 20% of graduating people join the PO, but that at least 30% of them are females. What I would also do and encourage PO and Engineers Canada and all the other provinces and territories, regulatory bodies, is to, as soon as 2030 is here, we should start working on 50 by 50, where we in 2050, we want 50% of licensed engineers to be females.
Thanks very much, Chris. And Peter, what would be your response?
Yes, I support the principles of moving towards gender equity, but we need to make sure we take the right steps to get there. The current engineering school enrollment is well below that 30% female level. So promoting the hiring of females to achieve the 30% target is not the right approach. The female engineers that I have a privilege to know are very intelligent, competent, and highly motivated, so do not need this type of support. We should be having, it's really a talent. It's a search for talent. We should be having outreach we should be having outreach programs in the high schools to encourage the brightest and best to enroll in engineering school rather than academic studies or applied science, so that we produce the highest caliber of engineering graduate possible that provide innovative solutions and problem skills moving forward to move our society forward.
Thanks so much, Peter. This next question, the concern has already been raised in the discussion tonight. And we're going to start with Chris for the response first. So the question is about the loss of the EIT status in Ontario. So EIT, also known as Engineering Intern or Engineer in Training Program. So what do you think about this PEO decision to cancel the EIT program? How concerned are you about future engineering graduates and their engagement in PEO, in gaining engineering experience, and in applying for a PEng license? So Chris, please go ahead.
It was unfortunate to hear that the EIT program has been cancelled. Like Vicky, I've gone through the EIT program and I find it valuable for everybody who graduates and wants to become a PEng. It had to be done because of fair access to professions, but I hope it will be replaced with something that can be done. There is the students can be members of PEO, so there will be the gap. Right now, there is that gap where people can be members of PEO as students and then can be members of PEO because they are not licensed yet. So I hope it will be replaced with something similar, very similar, where graduates can be assisted in becoming a PEO. And also, as soon as they are graduating, we can sort of hook them, be part of the profession. And then we won't have the problem that Peter mentions, that only 20% of the people are registering.
And Peter, what about yourself?
Yes, I think this is a great concern to the membership, the loss of EIT status. That with the EIT program as it was, there was during this 4-year period of gaining expertise, there was ongoing mentorship with members of our chapter. And continuing contact with the PEO. Already at the time of graduation, we're only seeing 20% of graduates signing on for PEO. During this process of getting their experience, they will not be part of the chapter system. There will be no ongoing contact with the EITs or the junior, newly graduated engineers. So my fear is that we'll lose contact and there will be even fewer graduates that will go on to get their professional status.
Okay. And Vicky, what about your response?
Thanks. Yes, I do think the EIT program is critical to bring back to PEO, but I do really appreciate the approach PEO is taking to do it as a thoughtful process instead of just reinstating the previous program. Previously, only about 30% of graduates use the EIT program, and I think there's an opportunity to expand and improve the system so we can get those numbers higher and approach Peter's concern about ensuring people are getting their license. And so I think ways that we can do that is through considering what opportunities exist and what parts of the EIT program worked well. Where are there other opportunities? Do we need to charge a fee for those involvement? And how do we ensure that we keep these younger people involved in chapters? There is a gap right now that without EITs, there is a hole of volunteers within chapters. And I think that that is a hole that we need to fill fairly quickly. And even in the time that it takes PEO to create a new EIT program.
Thank you very much. So we've heard a little bit about some agreement and some maybe disagreement with some of the previous decisions that have been made. So my next question, and we're going to start, Peter, with you. So the next question is about, are there any decisions that PEO Council has made in the last few years that once elected to council, you may wish to have reversed? Anything that you want to say, Peter?
Okay, so any decisions that council has been made won't have reversed. Well, I'm going to go back for a moment, I guess, and like in general, I do agree with the decisions that council has made. The ones that I would want to have revisited would be going back to the EIT program. I do think that they need to review the licensing process and streamline it, truly streamline it, rather than just move the licensing process around as they have. I do think that they should be looking at going forward, looking at a limited license process. I mean, we do issue driver's licenses to drivers for public safety, and I think if we took a page from that, could consider having people licensed on a limited license basis until they get their full license.
Thank you. And Vicky, what would be your response to what you've heard?
Absolutely. So someone who's been at the table for the last 2 years involved in this decision making, I know it's really been critical and difficult decisions, and it's never easy. And so what I want to say is I think council is doing the best that they can with the information and the timelines available. For PACTA, really stressed us. And it demonstrated that there's a need to improve our licensing system within PEO. And I really think that we can take on the charge of that. I'm so impressed with our new CEO and registrar. She's really taken the charge on this role. And I think council can continue to support the operations to improve how we license engineers, enforcement, and discipline, and also ensuring that we improve the customer service for our members. And then finally, I do really appreciate how the council is continuing to support chapters. And I think we need to bring clear direction to chapters. And that's being done through a committee that I'm working with Luc Robert around bringing a new chapter manual that will bring structure to chapters in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Hey, and Chris, what would be your response?
I can appreciate that some of those challenging decisions that have been made, like Vicky, you pointed out. PIC is one of the hot issues that, especially last year, right? I'm like, and part of it is I'm not opposed to PIC. Every profession has some sort of continuing education program, but I guess one of the things that people don't like about PIC was the promised referendum about it. My main issue, however, what I would like to reverse, and I know it includes government, is the industrial exemption, where people who are not trained in engineering do engineering jobs. And I can see it moving forward, where I was talking to recently to somebody where they indicated that they don't need to be professional engineers, they need to be licensed professional. Those need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So listen, our next question, we're going to start with Vicky. And that one is, what do you see as the biggest threat to self-regulation as it pertains to PEO and the engineering profession?
Absolutely. So I have mentioned a number of times that PEO's role is around regulating the profession and around enforcement and discipline systems. And overall, making sure that we're working with the government so that they don't remove our ability to self-regulate. And I really think that both us and all the regulators of different professions in Ontario should see PACT as a bit of a shot over the bow of how we do things. And we need to really take a good overview of how we're regulating the professions and ensuring we're doing it in the public interest. And this overall means that we are working to identify and break down barriers to becoming a licensed engineer. And I really think that removing these barriers will improve the engineering profession overall. And really, we need to reflect on why we have such low percentages of Indigenous, Black, and female engineers. I think we need more than 30 by 30 women. We need 30 by 30 Black, Indigenous as well. And I really think that that's work we need to focus on. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, what would be your response?
As I mentioned earlier, I think one of the big threats to self-regulation is and self-government is how a lot of the members of PO are disengaged, right? I mean, like they get the license, they pay the yearly fees, and that's the level of engagement with the PO. It's also, we need to, I guess, need to be relevant. We need to stay relevant, right? I mean, like that's another thing that Peter also mentioned in his opening remarks. And as Vicky said, 30 by 30, including all different minorities. And like as I said earlier, 50 by 50, right? Where PO and the members of the PO should reflect the society.
Thank you very much, Chris. And Peter, what would be your response?
Yes, I'm taking more of a strategic view. That the biggest threat, I think, is that the government decides to directly regulate the engineering profession. So they don't allow us to be self-regulated. They have done it in the electricity sector. At one point, Ontario Hydro was the electricity sector was a monopoly. It no longer is a monopoly. And the things that might cause that is that they may not be satisfied with the way that the PEO has taken the results of FARPACTA. There's also, I've mentioned this, there are a large number of unlicensed engineers out there that really represent a reputational liability to the profession. So that's my concern. And they've done it as I say, they've done it in the energy sector. The ministry issues directives that need to be fulfilled. And that's one of my biggest concerns.
Okay. So this next question, we're going to start with Chris. And if we look at the PEO's current strategic plan, one of the goals is to refresh PEO's vision to ensure that stakeholders see relevance and value in PEO. So we've already heard this a little bit in the discussion tonight. So Chris, my question is, whom would you identify as key PEO stakeholder groups or organizations? And what do you think meaningful engagement with them might look like?
The number one key group of stakeholders is the members, the PO members. Those are the most important in my opinion. The new graduates, as Peter repeats every now and then, only 20% of them join PO. That's another stakeholder. The government. We need to communicate with the government. We need to bring into PO the stakeholder, the engineering graduates, which are currently not recognized by PO. There is 60 different disciplines you can graduate from, but only a handful of them are recognized by PO. So that's a lot of missing stakeholders.
Thank you, Chris. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the key stakeholders I'm thinking are, in my theme continues, the Canadian engineering schools, the accredited schools that are pumping out engineers in not only the normal disciplines, but also the modern disciplines that are largely digital. Look upon them as academic, for the academic and professional aspects. The unlicensed engineers, find out why they're not licensed and look at ways to bring them into the fold as far as professional engineers. Foreign trained engineers, we have to engage them on the same basis as Canadian trained engineers. And employers, even those in the industrial exemption, to talk to them and about the value of having a professional engineer amongst their ranks, even though it's not required. And in consulting engineers for the traditional roles to talk to them about the changes. So
Okay.
Thank you.
And Vicki, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So I do think a really critical stakeholders are the licensed members who are part of chapters. And I think that we do need to continue to work to strengthen and clarify the roles of chapters to offer more direct opportunities for these licensed members to engage with senior management within PEO, as well as council members, and ensure that their views are being heard and incorporated into both the strategic and operational sides of PEO. I also think that there's a really good opportunity to talk to the users of engineering services. And this is a huge group of people, industry, municipalities, individuals, to ensure that our profession continues to meet the public need. We continue to see as engineers what we think is needed, but I think we need to be more open and transparent and eager to hear what our users need from our profession and to ensure that we are reflecting that in the work that we're doing, as well as in the Professional Engineers Act to ensure that we can meet those needs and continue to meet the public interest. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So this next question picks up a bit of a thread of also what we've been hearing tonight. And Peter, you'll be the first one to respond. So in 2021, PEO Council approved an anti-racism and equity code, which included a next step to evaluate PEO's role in truth and reconciliation and report back at its annual general meetings. So what do you think Council's accountability should be to the TRC's calls to action? Please go ahead.
Yes, I think the role should be to continue the dialogue. Truth and reconciliation is about looking at the past, but also leaving the past behind and looking to the future. And I think that we need to be open and honest with ourselves and others about what we need to do and where we need to go with this. I think it's an important element to it. And within the PEO, we're a meritocracy. We want the highest skills available, but we also recognize that people have pasts and may need some assistance to move forward and be successful in society. So that's mine.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Vicki, what about yourself?
Thank you. So I have the opportunity of living right near Six Nations, and I have really experienced the awakening of Indigenous communities, particularly after the TRC. And I have found as a white settler that my role is to listen. And I think PEO probably needs to take that role too, is to sit and to listen and to hear what Indigenous communities need from our profession. Our profession likely contributed to residential schools. And I think we need to come clean with that as a profession and to be honest about it and not try to push away history, to be more open with our history. I do also think that there are a lot of things that council could do. For example, we could have a land acknowledgement before meetings. We could also include Indigenous people more inclusively in our council. We currently do not have an Indigenous person that identifies as Indigenous on council. And maybe we should question about why we don't and how do we get more of a view of Indigenous people in PEO's work. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And Chris, what are your thoughts?
I really like what Vicki said about having one or more Indigenous people on the council, right? I'm like, there is lots of Indigenous people. I'm sure there's lots of Indigenous engineers out there. and none of them are on the council. Why is that? The Truth in Reconciliation and including the land acknowledgement, a lot of the times I see it as words being spoken without action backing it up. So having, and Vicky, my hat is off to you. I could not come up with that idea myself, but we should encourage, we should look for Indigenous engineers, invite them to be part of the council. That will say more than land acknowledgement at every single meeting combined.
Okay, appreciate the responses. Believe it or not, this is going to be our last question of this part of the discussion tonight. And we're going to start with Vicky. So artificial intelligence is a significant issue facing the world population in our services and our products. What do you see as PEO's role in protecting Ontario and Ontarians and any financial impacts caused by artificial intelligence? So what are your thoughts around PEO's role as a regulator with regards to the onset and inclusion of artificial intelligence?
Thanks for this question. I think this is a great question to ask. I think this is an ongoing problem that PEO is having around regulating software engineering and other types of engineering that were really not considered when PEO was founded. And so what I think we need to do is we need to be thoughtful and we need to not jump to regulate. We don't want to restrict this sector. We want to ensure that the sector can continue to grow. And there's also the challenge that AI is developed in California or it's developed in other jurisdictions, and then it comes to Ontario very quickly. We've seen this in academics where they had to reflect very quickly within a month of how to modify their strategies because of the AI tools. So overall, what I think PEO needs to do is be thoughtful, lean on experts, and understand how PEO can regulate this AI that is in best public interest to ensure that the sector continues to grow, but also done in a safe and thoughtful way that protects the public. Thanks.
Okay, and Chris, what are your thoughts on this topic?
AI is part of the bigger conversation PO should have about regulating emerging disciplines of engineering, software engineering, all kind of different engineering that I can't even think of because they are emerging. AI is here to stay. We should regulate it, but at the same time, and I think PO does it with all the other professional disciplines that we are regulating. So I'm not afraid of what Vicky is saying, that we will be regulating it so much that it will not evolve. I'm not afraid of that, but it should be regulated just like any other engineering professional disciplines, software, electrical, mechanical, chemical, and all the other different engineering professions.
Okay, and Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yes, AI is a current topic for sure. And it's, as Vicky and others were mentioning, Chris were mentioning, it's part of this new technology, the digital technology that doesn't have the physics and mass and momentum of the traditional technologies. And the body of knowledge in the digital technologies is 10 times, 100 times greater than the body of knowledge in the traditional things. So there's no way that you can directly regulate AI other than through a registration as a professional, inclusion and registration as a professional engineer, and have people commit on an ongoing basis that they're going to act with integrity and act in the best interests of society. And I think that's the only way that you can get it, so that when they're doing their AI, if it turns out that they're doing something that might hurt the public, they would be, as a profession, they would hold back from that and prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So thank you to all the candidates for your thoughtful responses. So this now concludes the question portion of this meeting. And now each candidate is going to have 90 seconds for their closing remarks. So we're going to start first with Chris. Please go ahead.
Thank you. As I said in my opening remarks, I've been with PO I've been active member of PO for about 15 years. I'm looking forward to the challenge to being the fresh voice, if you will, of the council. I would like all the people that think that trust, transparency, accountability of the council is relevant, that think that proper support for chapters is relevant, and that agree with me that chapters should have the proper support, consider voting for me, but also consider voting for Peter and for Vicky. We are all friends. We will be meeting at chapter meetings, at different meetings. So consider voting for one of us, and maybe let's make 2024 be the record number of votes casted. Let's make it 20% instead of 12 or 15.
Very good. Thank you very much, Peter. I'm sorry, Chris. Peter, your closing remarks, please.
Okay, thank you. In the early days of professional engineering, bridges and structures were failing due to unqualified people designing these facilities, and the government enacted legislation for PEO as a self-governing regulator to solve these problems. Today, we are faced with global issues that threaten our very existence and future generations. We need an all-hands-on-deck approach to solve the causes and mitigate the effects of climate change. We need professional engineers as problem solvers and effective decision makers to be at the forefront of addressing these challenges. We have a tradition of ethical behavior and commitment to public safety that now must extend into protection of a livable environment for ourselves and future generations. The PEO must reinvent itself as a self-governing regulator to license a broad spectrum of traditional and high technology engineers that will find sustainable development solutions that consider the economic, environmental, and social impacts today and for future generations. That's from the Brundtland Commission in 1985. If elected, I will commit my time to listen to your concerns, collaborate with Council and PEO to strengthen, modernize, and make professional engineering relevant again. I am really encouraged by the professional staff that I see on PEO and in Council, and I look forward to working with you regardless of whether I'm elected or not. Please support my candidacy for Western Regional Councillor with your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your time. And Vicky, please, your closing remarks.
Thank you. So I would first like to start with thank you for the confidence you've provided to me over the last 2 years as your current Western Regional Councillor. And I'd really ask for you to re-elect me as Regional Councillor for the next 2 years. I would also like to thank Chris and Peter for participating in this respectful and thoughtful discussion. I think it really reflects well on our profession that we can have open discussions about how to work to improve and maintain PEO in the public interest. Over the last 2 years, I have brought a perspective of hard work, respect, and professionalism to PEO. I have really loved working with my fellow councillors and continuing the important work we're doing to modernize and improve how PEO regulates the engineering profession. I believe my energy, positive spirit, and kindness has improved the decisions and work done by Council. If re-elected, I will continue to work to bring the views of Western Region to Council. I will continue to be a strong voice to support chapters and raise your concerns to senior management at PEO. I will continue to work hard to bring back an EIT equivalent program to ensure that we are supporting our new graduates to become licensed engineers. And I will continue to ensure that Council is a respectful and thoughtful and meaningful place to make decisions. I believe my role has been to bring fresh perspective and determination to ensure that PEO can be innovative and positive in its licensing and regulation of engineering, and I'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for sharing your thoughts. So this does conclude tonight's discussion. I would very much like to thank the candidates for their participation and also those watching online for your interest in the governance of the engineering profession. So again, your 3 candidates are Chris Popiolek, Peter Inman, and Vicky Hilborn. I hope you found the meeting to be informative and worthwhile. As a reminder, a recording of all candidate meetings will be on the PEO's website for the duration of the election voting period. And thank you again to everyone for participating in our discussion. As a reminder, your profession matters, and so does your vote. Voting is quick and easy. You can vote online or by phone. Voting will open on Friday, January the 12th, and voting closes at 4 p.m. on Friday, February the 16th. All the information you need is on the website www.peovote.ca. That's www.peovote.ca. And please join in live at 7 o'clock tonight for the Vice President All Candidate Meetings, and on January the 4th at 5:30 p.m. for the Eastern Regional Councillor and the President-elect All Candidate Meetings. Have a good night.